Remember to push the like button before you start the.
Here we are. We're live. It's legit. And I pushed it just as you were reminding me to remember to push the go live button, Susan. So that was your little debut for the night.
Oops.
It's okay. I feel kind of silly because all this time, um, my my YouTube manager has been making these wonderful countdown screens and such, and I haven't even been showing them
I
to the
love that
audience.
intro. It's really awesome. It's
Isn't that
powerful.
awesome? I love it. I really do
Yeah,
love that one.
did a great job.
Yeah, she did a fabulous job. Okay, so tonight we're talking about, well, first let me say hello to the panel. Susan, hello, and thank you for the go live reminder.
Oh,
And
you're welcome, Rhonda. Sorry about that.
oh, it's okay. It's okay. It was fine. Obviously, I need the reminders. And Jack, how are you?
Doing great. Hello, hello.
Hello. Thank you for being here as well. And Kay.
Hello.
All right. Brief, quick introductions. Yeah, we'll just pretty much get right into it. And tonight we're talking about Carla Johnson. Kay and I were just kind of talking before we got started. We really there's not been a whole lot said about Carla Johnson. Um, so um, this shouldn't be like an extensive, other than it's just full of lies and inconsistencies, of course. But there's really not a big, like, crazy storyline with her like there are some of the others. So, with that said, we're gonna try to get into, and welcome, by the way, to everybody in Foul Play, and thank you for streaming again, Jack, for Foul Play. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, yeah. Can you turn up your volume just a little bit, Jack? You're kind of quiet,
No,
please.
no, I can't
Okay.
do that.
Well, do it
Yeah,
anyway.
just a
I'm the
second.
boss, applesauce.
That's a good one.
Oh gosh.
Let's see.
Okay,
Volume.
so Jack and Susan, I think, are going to help read some through some of the slides tonight, and I think that's where we're going to start is with the slides, and because we feel like the slides have been really, really helpful as far as trying to keep everybody, uh, I don't know, situated or following along, I guess, with the case, especially, well, not even really just new people, but I mean, it's been even helpful for all of us.
Is
So,
that any better?
say that again.
Is that any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We appreciate it. Okay, so Jack or Susan, which one of you would like to start first?
Either way. Okay.
Reading
Go ahead.
slides, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Okay. There's not a
Okay.
lot. I think there's only, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe, if that.
Wednesday, August 13th, 2014 at 3:33 p.m. From Dennis Wenzel to Rocky Gregory. Subject regarding Now You In. Date August 13th. Not hiding. Promise. Grab Tim and Kim and come see me around 8:30 tomorrow. want me to keep going or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, from Musney to Ron Basie, same day at 4:07 p.m. You're first to know. I will tell others in the morning. Today, Kim and Valerie went to the jail to interview another female whose name was generated from the Unit 800 list I made for Kim. She is now victim number 4. She has had contact with him on 3 separate occasions, and the last time he felt her up and touched her breasts. I'm not sure where he made contact with her. Her name is Florine Lynn Mathis, 11960, black female. The last time he ran her through Unit 800 was 4/14/14. We have pulled ABL for that day and have now pulled all Unit 800 log sheets for 2014. I also have the 28-day forecast for Spring Lake, second shift, to narrow our search through the boxes of files from Unit 800. We have a long way to go on this victim, but at least we have a starting point. If you need any more info, call me, and I will try to answer what I can. Okay, this is who we talked about last week, right?
Yeah. It was. And so I don't know if he's saying that to document that, trying to document that they weren't pulling AVL at the same time they were pulling other records. Because it's obvious that they were pulling AVL and examining it to try to figure out who the perfect victims would be. Because they have a couple that are, at the rapey schoolyard, abandoned schoolyard, and they try to get these accusers to say things that other accusers have said, because that's I guess they feel like that's gonna be helpful with the jury. So I just find it interesting that they hadn't already pulled her AVL. I think if they hadn't pulled the AVL already, they would have had no problem giving Holtzclaw's team the logs of when and who pulled AVL on every single accuser, but they would not turn over that information, except Kim wrote some lousy report that gave dates on when she got AVL, which is worthless, completely worthless.
Correct. So we read through this one last week. Do we need to?
We don't necessarily have to read through this. I just wanted to kind of bring people up to speed as to where we left off.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we went through this one last week, and this was let's see. Let me get back. There we go. This was talking about how many times they made this big deal about how many times he had ran Sherry Ellis in a 24-hour or 48-hour period, or 24-hour period, and also mentioning Terry Morris, that according to Rocky Gregory and Tim Musney, when Terry Morris was also allegedly assaulted by him, was during the same period of time that he allegedly assaulted Sherry Ellis. So,
and 2 of Terry Morris's were at the same time. When we heard that radio traffic before, it's because I can't remember what he corrected. I think he corrected her date of birth.
Yeah.
Oh, it was the same stop. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually seconds apart. He called her in, and then he said, correction, date of birth, blah, blah, blah. They counted that as him running her again.
Oh, brother.
Now, I just clicked on that link, and I don't know if it shows. Let me get into StreamYard here. Okay, so we're gonna look at what was going on in Ferguson at this time. So let me.
Because we're coming to nearing the end of the first wave of riots, which I think were from the 9th to the maybe 16th, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm sure this will say.
Yeah. Okay, this should work the way I'm planning it to work. Let me see. Yes. I'm amazing sometimes. Okay, let's see.
It wasn't until the police started asking the crowd to move 20 feet back from the front line that things started to get a little bit escalated. The crowd, they talked, they got louder, but after the third time that the policeman had said that, then a young man threw a water bottle at the front line, and that's when they threw the tear gas at us. The protesters are tired. They're tired of going through the same thing over and over again. I think what they want to see is just some type of immediate change. Like I said, they weren't violent, and it was just one guy that made it escalate. I think protesters just want to see change in St. Louis, Missouri. They want to see justice with Michael Brown. They want to see that things are being done correctly. They don't want to see the same thing that happened with Trayvon. They don't want any more repeats. The protesters just want to see justice for that young man. Like last night, it was said at a rally, it's almost like the Black community is experiencing deja vu when it comes to the Black crime of an innocent young man, unarmed, dying. It's deja vu, and they just want to see justice.
Okay. So that's just a brief little clip, obviously, of the Michael Brown stuff that was going on in Ferguson. I remember that. It was pretty crazy.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
It was actually scary because I feel like, I think I said this last week, it was the first time I had really seen anything like that other than the Rodney King acquittals of all the police in the Rodney King thing. But and that was horrible. I mean, those riots were outrageous. I remember that, but I was much younger, and so I was much older and more mature and had a better grasp of the concept of what was going on in our world, in my world in that moment, and it was really frightening for me.
Yeah, I remember Rodney King well. Yeah.
That was the riots in Los Angeles after the cops were all acquitted. Were just horrific, absolutely horrific. So something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And it meant more to me after I started watching the more current times that we've had these things going on, in the last 8 or 9 or 10 years or so. The Rodney King riots meant more to me after I started watching the things that are going on more currently in our world, our society. So that was kind of what was going on in Ferguson. Let's see. And then this is, I don't remember if we read this. I'll run through this one if it's okay. So we're still on Thursday, August 14th, 2000. This reminds me, as we've been going through some of the, we talk about the calls and stuff with Avery's case. This kind of, in a sense, reminds me of the same thing, because there are so many things that are going on within just, a day, for instance, in this case, this day. And it's really fascinating how much stuff they can get done in one day. As far as this case, bringing all these different accusers together, they were working hard for sure. Excuse me. So on 8/14 of 2014, Detective Holman requests the Crime Information Unit to run an offline search to find out what law enforcement officers have ever ran a check for wants or warrants on Florine Mathis and Lynn Gibson. Lynn Gibson is a AKA of Florine Mathis. She asked the offline search to be from 12/1 of 2013 to 8/13 2014, which makes no sense because, well, this shows that they were going back farther, first of all, than what they claimed, back to 2013. And then I'm not sure, and Kay will have to maybe talk about it if she knows a reason, but to go to August 13th of 2014, Daniel was put on leave on June 18th of 2014. So I don't know why she was looking for that far in, but that's what she was doing. So, the offline search showed Florine Mathis on 12/3 of 2013 was ran by an Officer Jones. And then on 3/25 of 2014, Mathis was ran by Holtzclaw, I think. And then 3/25, Lynn Gibson was ran through Unit 800 by Holtzclaw. And Unit 800 and CAD and Varuna and all of those things, they work together, but they're not the exact same thing. But he's looking up Lynn Gibson because he's looking up her aliases for Florine Mathis.
Yeah, that's all one stop.
Yeah, so this is all one stop right there, yes. And then on not quite something of 2014, she was ran again by Charlie 48. Dominguez had ran her. So the thing is that not only Holtzclaw was running Florine Mathis, like we went through last week, we went through her rap sheet. She has a huge rap sheet. So, many officers were looking her up for sure.
And when did she originally say she was assaulted?
Florine Mathis, well, hers was the one that she claimed that he had assaulted her on, I can't remember the date. So it was I think it was in February, but it wasn't him that had stopped her at that point. It was somebody else that may have stopped her. But the days that Daniel stopped her were in March and April, in a completely different location.
Right, but that's not even showing on there, right?
On 3/25, that's the same date as Carla Johnson stop, but Florine Mathis also alleges that she was sexually assaulted on that day. And it's also the same day that
Tabitha Barnes, yeah.
Of the Tabitha Barnes
one of her
assault.
One of her days that she yeah. She has several. We're going to start her next week. Okay, Jack, do you want to read this one?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is Thursday, August 14th, 2014. Sex crimes detective Rocky Gregory interviews Tabitha Barnes at her residence. She cannot stay conscious, so the meeting is cut short and rescheduled. What the man?
That is no lie.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is the same day that, like I said, there's a lot going on the 14th for sure. And this was Gregory. He was the one that was. There's no video. There's no audio of this, of course. But we'll try to do more detail when we start talking about Tabitha next week. We'll give you more detail that comes from. Well, the only thing we have is Rocky Gregory's police report. So we'll try to. What's the word? Decipher it for you because you need like some special coding talents or something.
Word. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. So, Susan, do you want to read this one?
Sure. Timothy Munsey to Ron Basie, same day, August 14th. Yesterday, Kim and Valerie began looking at more names we came up with as possible victims of Holtzclaw. The list was generated by looking at females he ran through Unit 800. The names were then run through Varuna and EJIS to see if we had females that fit the profile we had so far. We came up with 11 more people we need to contact. Third paragraph from this same email, it's pretty long. We now have Unit 800 records from January of 2014 to April. We're going through these records to see when he ran her, how many times through Unit 800. We also have to go back and look at other reports ran, Varuna, MDC, etc., to see if her name comes up. We are also going to cross-check the names we come up with against each list. Oh, page 2?
Sorry, yes, I forgot I was muted. Oh, God. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Once we have her name on certain dates in Unit 800, we'll get a lineup, ABL info for each date. Fourth paragraph, we have gotten the ABL information for Sherry Ellis on May 7th. It shows Holtzclaw's vehicle in the area, but it doesn't show him at 0 speed for very long. On this case, he jumped the curb, which defeats the ABL. ABL doesn't show him going across the field by the school. The ABL shows his speed to the curb, then nothing. Then it shows him going 9 miles an hour out of the other side. After talking with Joe, this blank area can be explained and goes along with what victim Ellis has said.
Well, actually, no, it doesn't.
No, it
He
doesn't.
stopped at the curb. That goes along with Brian Bates' calculations that he could have only been, what was it, like 36 feet from the curb?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then the 9 miles an hour is when he got back in his car from in broad daylight at the playground equipment. I mean, not in broad daylight, but out in the open at the playground equipment. And then he drives to cut through the park to get to Miramar without stopping over by the Rapey building. So, yeah, no, it doesn't actually. Joe Hill needs to take a math class.
Well, I think it was intentional, obvious. I mean, because they're going to say all this stuff to the jury, right? And the jury's not going to. The jury's already so confused by now, anyway. That they know that they're going to be able to sway the jury to believing whatever they tell them with this stuff.
Yeah, they were hoping.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Oh, was there 3 of those? Was that 2 of 2 or
2 of 2?
Yeah.
It says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking about further on.
Okay. Kay, are you able to read this one, or did you still need to do something else?
Sex crimes detectives interview Florine Mathis again. Davis says, I failed to get background information from Florine when I interviewed her on 8/14/14. What? Is this really supposed to be? That doesn't make any sense because this is 8/14. I'm going to have to double check if that's my error or Davis's error.
Well.
Anyway, I think it was the very next day
Next
after the jailhouse interview that she went back to get more information.
Which I'm recalling was on the 13th. So
going back, or was the first
was
one
the first interview? I could be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the first one was on the 13th, and then she went back on the 14th, if I'm not mistaken.
So actually, that's her. This is copied from her report, so that's her error then. Oh wait, that information from man, both her and Gregory are horrible writers. Maybe this makes sense to someone. I'm just interpreting this. I
Yeah.
failed to get some background information from Florine when I interviewed her on 8/14/14, so I obtained that information from her on this date. I do believe she did interview her on the 13th. You're right, Susan. Her true name is Florine Mathis. She has an alias Lynn Gibson, legal married name Florine McLean. She doesn't have any children. And when she went back the second time, even though all she had to do was push a button before she walked in the room because the jail is set up for audio and video, and there were two of them, neither one of them decided to record this interview.
It's just underhanded, sneaky.
Well, you
Well-
know, they can help coach her. They recorded the first one. They can help, you know, if she has any holes in her story, if she has any things that she can't remember because she's traumatized, they can help her
Help her fill
fill
it
in the gaps.
Yeah. But it's also, Kay and I talked a little earlier, we were thinking that maybe that's something we need to FOIA is all jail interviews with Kim Davis and Florine Meth, you know, that's a, you know, see what we come up with if this is indeed the only recorded video or interview. Because, I don't know. We don't feel like it is.
Thursday, August. Oh, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off.
No, they're fine.
August 14th at 3:29 p.m. from Timothy Musney. Quick update on Holtzclaw. Kim and Valerie went out again and started checking addresses. They got two people who said they were not assaulted by an officer and left contact cards on the other addresses. They did, however, find victim number 5. And then he says Rocky went out and he also found a victim. That gives us 6 so far. We are not done with any of our initial lists, and now everything we touch has generated another victim and work. They are getting easier since they are so similar, and we need the same information on each case. Yeah, except you can't remember to ask the questions and you have to keep going back. So yeah, it sounds like they're getting super easy.
Wow.
Well, not only that, but they're making sure that each of these accusers has a relatively similar story. So, of course, it's going to get easier in that respect. And
So they're leading them in the same direction is what they're doing.
Yeah. exactly.
Well, you know, they're leaving contact cards with family members and they're telling the family members what happened to these women so that they can fill the women in so that when they do actually contact the police back or the police track them down, they'll have an idea of what the police think happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the most ridiculous type of way to go about an investigation. I mean,
Well, it is, and it's, you know, there's been several words that have been used to describe the method of the way they did this investigation. And there's, you know, they solicited accusations. I like that one. Reverse engineered accusations.
yeah.
You know, crafted accusations. Yeah, everything was deliberate that they did, for sure. Okay. Okay, we're still on August 14th.
Detective Homan and I went to the last listed address in Varuna for Carla. She answered the door. I told Carla, this is Carla Johnson, I received a tip that she may have been sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer. Carla shook her head and said, "Yes, ma'am, that did happen. We asked if we could come in and talk to her, and she let us in." And so they're at her house, and they chose not to record the interview. And they say, "Oh, they were just planning to leave a card. They weren't expecting that she would be home and they would interview her," which is
So what? You should
so
have
much
your stuff
bullshit.
with you, period. I mean,
That's what I think too, Susan. That stuff, you're a sex crimes detective. All of that equipment should go with you whenever you go out.
that's right.
What's the
Right.
bullshit Davis said in her deposition? We aren't, but we're not equipped. I can't remember. It's like they just aren't set up to have that kind of equipment.
Yeah.
Oh, come
A
on.
frickin' recorder? Are you kidding me?
A
They
damn.
recorded some of them, right?
Yep.
I mean, don't say that you can't just use your phone, because we just passed a slide where Musney used his personal email address to correspond on the case.
Yep.
I mean, can't use your personal stuff? Okay.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to point that out too, and I forgot, but yeah, brings up a good point. He was emailing probably from home or something, or out of the office that day, and he sent that email from his own personal email address, and
Don't tell me
that's
they don't have portable little recorders.
Well, they obviously do, because when Rocky's in the jail with Terry Morris,
yeah.
he doesn't walk. He doesn't have enough time to walk out of the room, push the button, and walk back in before he starts talking. So he has walked across the room, whichever recorder he has, whether it's his cell phone or a handheld. He pushes the button, sets up the call. You can hear Musney and Morris across the room, and she's going over the tail end of her new story. So, yes, he has equipment, whatever it may be.
Just as simple as a digital recorder.
It's ridiculous.
We're talking 2014 here. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, we're talking clown show here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that.
Well, these are the best detectives in the world.
Yeah. And here's where it just is this is again, and this comes right from Kim Davis's police report. So this is exactly what she said. "I told Carla I had received a tip that she may have been sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer. It's just so improper. First of all, we all know, and we've been explaining to you as we've been going through the timeline, nobody ever received a tip. None of these detectives ever received a tip about any assault. I mean, it's arguable. There's one that you could argue possibly that they turned into Sarita Bowen based on a name that they got from, I think it was Rosetta Great, but that's not the name she said. But that's, they managed to find somebody in the list of females that Daniel had stopped whose name sounded enough like it so that they could, go and get her, and they did. So nobody received a fucking tip. Oh, this is one of 3K.
Can someone else read this?
Yeah. Jack, do you feel like reading, or you don't have to?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Is it this one here, the one that's up?
Yes.
One of
This is
three.
one?
Yes, one of 3.
Okay, yep. All right. This is August 14, 2014 at 6:55 p.m. From Timothy Musney to Kim Davis, Rocky Gregory, Ron Basie, Wenzel, Kuhlman, and Johnny L. Who was that? Oh, it's Johnny L. Kuhlman. Okay. Quote, quick update on Holtzclaw. Kim and Valerie went out again and started checking addresses. They got two people who said they were not assaulted by an officer and left contact cards on other addresses. They did, however, find victim number 5. Her name is Carla Johnson. She said she was assaulted approximately 4 months ago. She described the officer as mixed race, Indian or Mexican. 5'9", 210, muscular, nice hair, nice looking. She said he was driving a new car and not a black and white car. He has had contact with her twice. She knows she had on a jacket, and she is unsure of the dates. She said she was run on the radio both times, and she heard she was clear both times. The second contact was around 16 Jordan, and he did his typical quote, "Are you sure you don't have anything on you, etc." End quote. As she was getting ready to leave, she held out her arms, and he began to search her from behind. He grabbed her breast on top of her clothes and then put his hand down in front of her pants and inside her panties. He went between her lips enough that we should have a rape by instrumentation case on him. After touching her, he let her go and walked off. He then followed her for a short distance and told her she had a warrant and she needed to take care of it. One of those days in question is April 14th, 2014. We already have paperwork generated by Unit 800 that shows he ran her that day. Rocky went out and also found a victim. That gives us 6 so far. Her name is Tabitha Barnes. She appears to be a perfect victim.
Oh my
Emphasis,
God.
yeah, emphasis added. She said that she had dealt with quote-unquote Spike, her name for Holtzclaw, on several occasions. She was very hard to follow and became upset and emotional that we had to quit the interview. She has,
What?
yeah, right. She has assured us that she will be ready to talk to us on Friday. Rocky is going to interview her at 10 o'clock tomorrow. He made contact with her in front of her house at 1530 Northeast 15. He had her children go inside and eventually felt her breast and put his hands down her pants. This victim also mentioned that she found $20 on the floor in the back seat of the car. That makes 2 victims who have said this. Okay. We are not done with any of our initial list, and now everything we touch
You're
has
muted, Jack.
generated. Can you not hear me?
Is that me?
What?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
It's you, Susan.
Hello.
Hello? I can hear you.
Jack, you're fine.
Okay. All right. We are not done with any of our initial visits, and now everything we touch has generated another victim and work. They are getting easier since they are so similar, and we need the same information on each case. What? I will give updates as we find out new information. Right now, we just need the time to complete our investigation with as few as possible distractions. I spoke with Galen tonight, and he told me he and David are ready to take charges, and he wants us to start working on the blue sheets. With our 6 victims so far, we should be close to 10 or 11 charges. We have 4 oral sodomy charges, 1 rape, 2 rape by instrumentation, and 3 or more sexual batteries. Thanks. Tim.
It's like a game. He makes it sound
It
like a
is.
game.
Yep. No
He's
doubt.
also exaggerating. Rocky's report doesn't say what he's saying here, and we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see those reports after this timeline.
Yep. Okay, so this is on the 15th of August. So we'll do this one. We're not doing this one tonight, are we?
We don't need to. I think this one might be 15 minutes long, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So
Is this-
I
this-
just
Sorry.
want to point out that it's just still going on, and the cops are really getting more aggressive with the protesters who, at the point that they started firing bullets on him on the 14th, that was all started by one person throwing a water bottle. Now, the police's story is that they were throwing Molotov cocktails at him. Who knows? I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know. I mean, there are plenty of people with opinions about this and eyewitness accounts, but it's really hard to know exactly what went down. But it's getting violent, and at this point, no one has destroyed any property yet, but that's coming.
Right. And they're all watching this. I mean, everybody's watching it. We were all watching it happen. We were all watching it unfold.
Yeah.
So,
Fake news.
Was that the end of that one? Let's go to, let's use Brian Bates' website, holtzclawtrial.com, and it's just easier to go through the police reports there, and he'll have some nice pictures and maps and such all in one place. So remember, when you want to research any of the accusers, if you go to the website, holtzclawtrial.com, and click on the turquoise link under the episode, it will take you to all of the supporting documents that he used to compile the episode itself. So this is Carla Johnson. He was found guilty on her count. The count date 5/26/14. As we just saw, they solicited the allegation on August 14th. Holtzclaw did have contact with her twice. Let's see. I'm going to try to blow this up. All right.
you wanting the police report?
Yeah, let's go through that.
This is the map where she was allegedly stopped. This is Northeast 16th Terrace. This is where, well, it's the same street that Sherry Ellis lived on, but a different different east-west direction. So she was allegedly stopped on foot and assaulted here where this green spot is, on Jordan, Northeast 16th and Jordan. This is, I'm trying to see here because this is also 15th and Jordan is where Tabitha Barnes lived, but that's not in this picture. So
yeah, so we're a block away from the crack house.
The crack house, yeah. So this is, did you want to go through these pages quickly, or?
I just want to read what Rocky put in his report. I mean, Kim Davis put in her report. Sorry, I had Tabitha Barnes on my brain. Okay. So Lieutenant Musney he says, an interview with Carla Johnson, which wasn't recorded. Kim Davis says Musney gave me a list, several females that he wanted contacted because they could be possible victims of Officer Holtzclaw. When he gave me this list, we still hadn't found a match to the unidentified female DNA on Officer Holtzclaw's pants. Johnson was on the list. On 8/14, Homan and I went to the last listed address in Varuna for Carla. She answered the door. I told Carla I received a tip that she may have been sexually assaulted by an Oklahoma City police officer. Carla shook her head and said, "Yes, ma'am, that did happen." We asked if we could come in and talk to her, and she let us in. Carla's a 52-year-old Black female. She's lived at her current residence for the past 3 years. She has a platonic roommate, Victor Wilson. She said she has no victim history. She has multiple arrests, no mental health history. This ends up being disputed. No medical problems, and does not take any medications. She said she does not drink alcohol, but she smokes crack cocaine. Carla said she had been stopped twice by the officer who assaulted her. She said the first time occurred approximately 4.5 months ago, said it was around 12:30. And it was cooler because she was wearing a jacket. She said she was leaving Northeast 14th and Kellam. She was walking on foot between Northeast 15th and 14th and 15th. She said the officer came from behind, drove past her, and then did a U-turn and stopped. Said the officer got out of the car and asked her what she was doing. She told him she was on her way to a friend's house. The officer mentioned she was leaving 14th Street and asked if she was buying dope. She told him she was not buying dope. She was taking care of her pawpaw. Carla said the officer asked if she had anything in her pockets. He took her purse and put it on the trunk of his car. Officer asked her if she had anything in her pockets. She emptied her pockets to consist of money, 2 20s, 2 $20 bills, 1 $10 bill, 1 $5 bill. You think a blowjob's $55? I'm sorry.
I wouldn't
No
know.
comment. No
Jack?
comment. No comment.
Anybody in the chat?
Two blowjobs and a hand job.
A hand job?
Keys, lighter, and cell phone. She put her belongings on the officer's trunk. He let her keep her money and lighter. The officer had her take off her shoes and socks. That's the first and only accuser which claims this happened, which, I mean, I'm not saying that he wouldn't have done that if he thought she had drugs on her. I could see that happening, so I'm not going to dispute that necessarily. He asked if she had a bra on. She told him no and shook her shirt. She said the officer put her in the back seat of the patrol car on the driver's side, went through her purse while it was on the trunk of his car. She had also taken off her jacket and it was on his trunk. He went through that also. She said he got into the scout car. He started questioning her. He asked what she was doing, where she was coming from, if she had drugs on her, what she had been arrested for, when the last time she was arrested, if she had been arrested for prostitution. Carla said she was answering his questions. She said the officer asked her 7 to 8 times, "Are you sure you don't have anything down your pants?" She kept telling him no. She told him he could get a female officer to come search her. He never did. She said he ran a check on her over the radio. She came back clear. He asked her, "Are you sure you ain't got anything on you?" She told him no. He let her out of the car. Carla said she got out of the car and saw a $20 bill laying on the back seat of the patrol car. She thought it had fallen out of her back pocket. She picked it up. The officer told her he wanted to check and make sure she didn't put any drugs in the back seat. He pulled the back seat up and looked. She went to his trunk and started putting her belongings back into her purse. She said the officer said, as a matter of fact, "Give me back that 20." Okay, thank you. She said she checked the money in her back pocket and saw that she had all of it. She had all of her money. She gave him the $20 back. The officer said, I had that money back there for a reason. Carla said she left and walked to a friend's house. And so then the second stop, she says that would have been on 5. Let's see. I think the second stop is May 26th. She said the same officer stopped her a second time about 1 to 1.5 months later. It was around 0200 hours. She was walking at Northeast 16th and Jordan. Again, she's at the crack house. So the officer rounded the corner and almost hit her. He stopped and got out of the car. Carla said the officer where she was coming from. She told him she was on her way home from her cousin's house. The officer asked if she had pockets and showed him they were empty. The officer asked her, "Are you sure?" She said the officer put her in the back seat of his scout car and he got into the driver's seat. She said the officer asked, "Haven't I stopped you before and taken you to jail?" She told him he stopped her about 1.5 months ago and let her go. The officer asked her, "You don't have anything on you tonight?" Carla said the officer to search her.
Officer asked her this question over and over. Carla said the officer asked her this question over and over. Sorry.
She told him he could get a female officer to search her if he didn't believe her. Carla said she had condoms in her pocket. The officer asked, "You're not trying to get dates tonight?" He told him no. She said he checked her for
warrants.
It's the arrow on the right.
I changed it.
Oh, checked her for warrants on the radio and she came back clear. The officer let her out of the car. He asked her again, "Are you sure you don't have anything on you? Is there anything in your pants?" She said, "No, sir, I promise I don't." She said the officer said, "Let me check." She turned around thinking he was going to pat search her. She said the officer was behind her and he reached around her and grabbed both of her breasts and fondled them on top of her shirt. She was not wearing a bra. Carla said the officer put his hand down the front of her pants and panties and touched her vagina with his fingers. He touched her clitoris with his finger. She said, "Sir, please, you're not supposed to do that."
Huh. Where does that come? That sounds so familiar.
That's a Jimmy Liggins quote.
Yep.
He said, and so is this, "Okay, you can go," because that's what
rapist do. Yeah.
Carla said she started to walk away. She got on her cell phone and tried to call her roommate Victor. She said her cell phone is broken. The person she calls can hear her, but she can't hear them. She was saying into the phone, "I'm walking, I'm scared. The officer is real strange. He put his hands down my pants." She said she turned the corner north onto Kellam. She said the same officer followed her. He pulled up behind her and rolled down his window. This officer said, "As a matter of fact, you have a warrant. You need to take care of that." Carla said she went straight home. She found out her roommate didn't answer the phone, so he didn't hear what she was saying to him. When she called him, when she called him. Something that could be, oh, wait.
When she got home. Yeah, sorry.
She immediately told Victor, he told her there should be something that could be done about it. Carla said she was afraid she would see the officer again sometime. She didn't know what to do. She said if she reported it, then it would be his word against hers. She did not report the incident. She said she is telling the truth and offered to take a lie detector test. Carla described the suspect. From listening to her deposition, I can't really see her offering to take a lie detector test. That wasn't really her kind of. That just doesn't sync up.
It doesn't sound logical from her.
Carla described the suspect mixed race, maybe Indian or Mexican, 5'9", 240, big, stocky, nice-looking dark hair with a nice cut, clean-shaven, driving a new police car. Carla said she can identify the officer. End of report. So this is 8:14, and we're coming up on Holtzclaw's arrest, 8:21. And Davis and Homan have not interviewed Victor Wilson, her roommate, yet, who, supposedly got a voicemail from her, but they don't, I guess they're too busy getting the blue sheets ready and adding all
Didn't she say she talked to him after she got home?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that whole
something about this.
Yeah. That whole phone call thing that she claimed there became a big thing because when Kim Davis allegedly tried to listen to the phone call, it turned out that it was a voice message, and the voice message and the roommate didn't listen to the voicemail. And so when they tried to listen to it the next day, he didn't listen to it, but he deleted it. So it wasn't there. So there's no voicemail about the whole thing. So Carla Johnson's is the one that I do remember had the most, or at least for whatever reason, her inconsistencies between the police report, preliminary trial, and deposition was just always inconsistent with several of her things. Like, was she wearing a bra? Well, she was wearing a bra, and then in the preliminary she wasn't wearing a bra, and then at trial she was wearing a bra. So, and I get it, things like that can be you forget some things or whatever, but I don't know, it just doesn't she seemed to have a lot of inconsistencies that were easy to pick that I can remember. Sorry.
Is Victor Wilson's report next, or?
Let's see. Sorry.
Let's see. Hang on. What were those?
Those were the typical things that she always.
Yeah, I mean, I find that interesting. What qualifies for evidence in their reports is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, yeah. Was that this one? No.
Yeah, during the investigation, Sergeant J. Hill provided me with the following evidence. I mean, it's Daniel's work records. That's evidence. I mean, we can take all this same sort of evidence and build a case against Rocky Gregory or Kim Davis or any
cop.
Rob High. Let's do one against Rob High.
Yeah.
He seems like a dirty dude.
Exactly. That's just it. The following evidence, the tools that he used to do his job are the evidence that they have. That's it. That's what you see right here, numbered 1 through 5. That's the evidence they have on Daniel Holtzclaw. There's the CIU radio. There's the CAD call showing the traffic stop. AVL maps showing that he stopped her on such and such of a place on a certain date at certain times. CIU radio traffic when he checked her for wants and warrants. And that happens to coincide with the AVL maps. So that means that, that he's guilty of doing it. They've got all this proof right here that he's guilty of sexually assaulting her.
Every officer has this same evidence against them. If you look at this as incriminating evidence, it's ridiculous that not one single, well, maybe there were jurors. I guess there were jurors who wanted to be not guilty, but they got badgered. So apparently they came around.
Yeah.
As Ron Hill
claimed,
the arrogant juror said.
Yeah. This is the list they claim does not exist. God.
Let's see, what is this? I contacted Unit 800. This is Musney's report, and had Supervisor Manfield look up all females at C245, ran through from April of 2014 to June 18th, 2014. She gave me a list, and I began checking the names through our Varuna system to see if any of the persons checked had a criminal history. I was specifically looking for women who had either a drug history or a history of prostitution. I then made a list of women who I felt we needed to make contact with to see if they were victims of a sexual assault. Yeah, so I mean that's almost every person that Daniel pulled over in his sector.
Yeah.
Those are the people he came into contact with. They put him in that sector because it was a dangerous sector, and they felt like he could handle it. It's the same reason they gave him a gang assignment before he was barely off probation as a brand new officer, because they saw that he could handle it. Nuts.
Yeah.
All right, we can go past. What is this?
Okay, that's
this is more evidence, right?
Yep.
The Varuna checks, because he looked her up in Varuna. CIU checks. See, he obviously knows that she has an alias because he called in Thompson. We'll hear that when we hear the radio traffic here in just a minute.
Yeah. He's got several checks here. So and then the two Varuna checks up here within 2 months of each other. So he's looking more and more guilty.
Wouldn't it be more suspicious if they pulled his AVL and these women said, hey, this happened at this location, but he didn't call him in?
But he didn't call him. Yeah, there was no Varuna checks, that would look a lot more suspicious.
I mean, one of these calls that we have recorded of radio traffic is Daniel out on a subject somewhere. Headquarters calls to check on him. He doesn't answer right away. They send someone to go check on him. The guy's close, he's just going to buzz over there where Daniel is. So you're going to be raping someone? I mean.
Yep. So this is the supervisor of the Crime Information Unit, CIU. They're the ones, that's the unit responsible for checking wants and warrants. Janet and I, this is Kim Davis, went over the log sheets involved in this case to find out which employee took the request. from Holtzclaw and conducted the search for wants and warrants.
See, you can do a query of who does what. You can do that with this. And guess what? You can do it with the AVL too, but they didn't and they won't.
And they
Because why? It's exculpatory for Holtzclaw. Their whole freaking case would fall apart, and we would have a bunch of criminals at the Oklahoma City Police Department. So we can't give you that information.
Yep. This is about the lineups. The whole lineup thing is frustrating to me. If we had access to everybody's lineup information, their CAD calls, their CIU, their Varuna, 800, then those lineups would mean something to me. But honestly, they don't mean anything to me, those lineups.
I mean, this is who's on duty at what time. So they're just building the case against him. They need this documentation that, yes, he was indeed working those nights that he's accused, which, we have.
He's got the ABL.
We have everything already, but this is just, who is it? Hill saying that he did this stuff.
Whoops. Yeah.
Carla gets a new cell phone number.
What was this?
It's an offline search request, just like you could do an offline search request for AVL, who pulled it and when.
Yep.
See, we can do this.
This was done by, but Kim Davis plays stupid during trial. Well, she's stupid all the time, but.
Is this Olet's messy detail?
This is the offline search from what's her name?
Yeah.
December. So it's Holman saying, "Will you advise me of any inquiries on the following person from December 2013 to June 19th, 2014? All help appreciated." And that's regarding Carla Johnson. I don't really see much from Holman, honestly. I'm actually surprised.
That's NCIC. So these are just all of the searches that, they're verifying that the searches happen now. These are just supporting documents again for trial. This is her DNA, which she got on 8/14. That would have been her second contact with Homan.
Let's see. This is a bad. I don't like these black and white ones.
No, you can just go through those.
Yeah. This is the AVL stuff that's without being able to turn the pages so you can see them in the right direction. Those are kind of hard to understand, really. This is this again? Okay, what is this
That's
called?
him calling. That's Daniel. They're searching where he made the traffic stop. It shows that on 325 at this time, the dispatcher's initials that to Charlie 45 was good. And then at this time, 1090. What is 1090?
Well, I thought it was I thought it was repeat, so I've got it. I thought it was 10-9, and it was. But when I looked up the police codes earlier, 1090 was for something else. More.
Maybe that's when they were sending another officer out to check on him because he didn't immediately answer. She only gave him 2 seconds to get back with her before she called for another officer to go out.
Could be 1090. Yeah, that could be what 1090 was. I looked up the police codes earlier because those are pretty much universal. At least I thought they were.
Look at this list of...
I'll bet you're right, because that's like 20 minutes after he called in.
Yeah.
Then he went out on something, and then 20 minutes lapsed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So just above... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, I'm done.
So just above, there's a list from left to right, additional information, assignments, activities, callbacks, comments, notes. scroll back up.
Am I looking
Yeah,
at?
right there.
Oh, I see what you're saying right here.
What I'm trying to get to is the next one. Edit log.
Yeah.
Edit log has a bunch of information that we would like to see.
Yes. But no matter how hard I push it, it doesn't work. Yeah.
So they can show us any changes that have been made. I mean, we've seen through having access to some of the emails that were FOIA'd. We've seen where they make reference to changing reports because they didn't like how the officer worded them. Like, this should have been a civil deal, it sounds like. So I changed that part, or I took that part out. All those things would be contained in the edit log.
We got none of that.
No.
No,
Well, yeah, I mean, Scott Adams asked for the AVL, but he didn't have the terminology
right.
for the program. So he didn't know to ask for offline searches or edit logs.
Yeah.
Or keystrokes.
Yeah, because when we've talked about that, he wasn't from that era where he understood computer language.
He wasn't very techno.
He wasn't techno. Yep. This is the dispatch log.
Yeah, where the dispatcher writes down when Daniel calls in for a search of warrants. So that's the paper documentation. Same for the next one, the second stop. And this is what the Varuna sheet looks like, that they queried everyone that Daniel ran a Varuna check on. And they were just looking for people who he ran multiple times. Which,
black females.
Yeah, many officers, many of the law enforcement people that testified at trial explained how they use Varuna as an investigative tool, but somehow it's different when Daniel uses it that way. He was trained by the gang unit. He was trained by other officers to utilize that database for more information about people.
And that's what this is about.
Yeah, they used this against him. Or they used it to find the perfect victims.
Right.
I mean,
this is what I believe. Excuse me. I believe this is what Musney used, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So yeah, this just shows. It's just a bunch of pages of that. This is an incident report card.
Yeah, that just shows when he got the call, when he got a call, or when he made contact and places himself out with a subject. This is an incident report that documents all the times down to the second. They wouldn't have this had he not called her in. So
right. Keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind. She changed her address. It looks like.
$3 calls no report, 5/26/2014. I'm not sure what that is. It's still part of the incident report, but they're trying to use this, I guess, against him for something.
Well, I mean, that is her second date. And it is the count date for which he was convicted. So I guess it's just still part of that incident report.
Yeah. This is hard to read because this is what they look like, and you can't really see what all these things say. This is a
these are things like, did you arrest him? Was it specifying like what kind of a call it was, or things like that.
Like this one's a traffic stop, and this one's
right.
suspicious.
what time. Yeah,
Yeah.
if he punches this information into his computer, then everything that he documents will be a part of this report.
And this is the
And-
time, the beginning of the stop to the end. This is all the.
And although he called in both times, I think one of the times he didn't actually document it on this sheet. So they only know that he stopped her because he called her in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, here's Victor Wilson's very short.
Okay,
report.
so Holtzclaw, her thing is on her interviews on
14.
8/14. Holtzclaw gets arrested on 8/21, and then we decide, oh, let's go interview Victor Wilson to see, let's prop this accuser up here. On 9/18/14, I contacted Victor Wilson over the phone. He's a 58-year-old black male. He said he has known Johnson for years. He said they've lived together as roommates for over 2 years. He said when this incident occurred, he was at home. It was late and he was in bed asleep. He said his phone rang sometime after midnight. He did not answer it. Victor said the following day he noticed he had a voicemail from the call he didn't answer. He retrieved the voicemail. It was Carla, and she left a message saying she was pulled over by a police officer when she was walking, and he felt all over her. Which I think what she said was, the officer is strange. He put his hands down my pants.
Mm-hmm.
Victor said he didn't talk to Carla much about it. He said, well, actually, I'm not sure where Bates got that Carla said that when she got home, they listened to the recording together.
I don't know where.
Because that's not in the police report, so I don't know where that came from.
Trying to think.
That's kind of like a note.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out because I know it's got to be in here somewhere.
Let's see.
Maybe at preliminary or something.
Victor said they didn't talk. He didn't talk to Carla much about it. He said he didn't know how to comfort her or what to say. When he talked to her, she told him a police officer stopped her and ran his hand down her pants. He said she told him where she was stopped, but he can't remember what she told him. Victor said he has since erased the voicemail. He had the same number as he has now, and his service is through AT&T. There were 4 phone calls placed by her to him. 2 were before Holtzclaw stopped her, and then 2 were immediately after he closed out the call with her. So whatever that means, because Carla can't hear on her phone. So, and she only left 1 voicemail. So what was the purpose of the other 3 calls? I mean, she knows that she's not going to be able to hear anyone. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying earlier about this phone call, because there's a whole bunch of lies centered around the whole phone call thing.
And they're really quick phone calls too, almost like you would expect, just a few seconds.
Yeah.
So not really time to tell a story about what happened and where you were and what he did. So it would have been, and Bates points this out, it would have been good to have gotten her cell phone records for previous to that. They got her cell phone records for this time period, but like the month before, the 2 months before, to kind of see, is that common that she would have these close together phone calls that are so short at that time of night to Victor when she knows he's in bed.
Right.
Should we play radio traffic and then?
Yeah, I just want to jump over here really quickly and see what's going on in the chats really fast, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to see. Justine J. I'm not sure where you came in, Justine, but yeah, she says I joined at a strange moment. Well, it could be just
Maybe
about
it
any
was,
time.
yeah. Maybe it was when Musney was saying that he put his fingers between her lips or something.
Oh, between her, yeah, could be. Yeah, could be. Oh.
What else is weird?
Everything's weird. Oh gosh. So looks like
I think it was at the cost of a blowjob.
the cost of a blowjob. Yeah,
Oh,
probably.
well, someone's a smart ass on the panel, so
I don't remember. I don't know who said that. Okay, do you know who said that?
who said that? How much is a blowjob? I don't know who said that.
I don't know either. So
I said 2 blowjobs and a hand job.
oh, that's right, you
it was
did.
Susan.
There's Cherie. Cherie is over in the chat in foul play. Thank you so much. And Jinx has already said it. We were going to say it at the end of the show, but yes, tomorrow is happy birthday for my twin, Cherie. Is it tomorrow? Oh boy, yes, tomorrow's the 9th, right? Okay. Whew. Anyway, everybody say hello. Happy birthday to Cherie.
Happy birthday to Cherie.
Yes.
It's the twins' birthday too, Caitlin and Christopher.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
You real?
Oh,
2001. Yeah, they sure were.
I
Sure
did
were
not
born
know that.
June
No.
9th, 2001. Yep.
Happy birthday to your twins,
Well, happy birthday to
Caitlin
you,
and what?
Cherie. Christopher.
Christopher. I don't know
Yep.
why I can't ever remember that. And T1 has dropped into both chats as well. So welcome, T1. Wanted to say hello and yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yep, like T1 says, everybody smash that like button. Sweetly Quiet, I am unfamiliar with. Sweetly Quiet _78. Hello to you as well, and thank you for being here. And let's see, check really quick. Okay, I think Cherie, I don't know if you're going to be able. I think Cherie's having dinner with her family, so I don't think she's going to be able to join us. But okay, so we're going to play some. Pardon my sniffing. I apologize. That's gross. We're going to play some radio traffic here for you. Some calls.
We think they're in order, but
yeah,
it doesn't have the timestamps on them. So if something seems out of order, I'm not sure how to.
Yeah,
I didn't realize we didn't have the copies without timestamps until it was too late in the day. So,
and I was just guessing. But at any rate, the whole idea is so that you can hear that people are that Daniel was calling people in is really the whole idea. But we're going to go ahead and play K or whatever if you need me to. Just I tried to get the subtitles in. It's kind of hard to understand some of them. And then there's going to be a section where I didn't even put any subtitles because it really doesn't have anything to do with Daniel or anything. It's just a random call that they're talking about. Okay, so here we go.
Okay. 45 clear off the Ave. Yeah, 1 off 15 Kilo.
Yes.
2 Charlie 45, stand by.
Charlie 45, stand by.
45's back in.
10-4.
Alright, Charlie 25, your subject is coming back clear. I ran her under another last name of Thomas. It was 8/6/62 like you told me, and 8/6/67. I got no warrants.
Alright, 10-14.
10-4.
Spraying light to Charlie 45. They're an available unit close to Northeast 15th and Kellum. Charlie 45 is on answering the radio.
21, I'll check him. 45's good, sir.
10.
Charlie 45, are you still on my ear?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One to run OSDL, last name is Johnson. That's John Ocean Harry Nora, Sam Ocean Nora. First name's in Carla, Charles Adam Robert Lincoln Adam. Date of birth is 8/6/62, black female. You can also look by a social as well because she has other aliases. 446, black female.
10-4. Okay, Charlie 45.
Go ahead.
Okay, hang on a second.
Charlie 35.
Go ahead.
Start you to the citizen assist at Northeast 12th and Lottie. Calling parties with DHS. We need to go retrieve a child in the area of 14th and Bath. Waiting in a GMC Yukon white and color at the funeral parking lot in that area. 33, go to that. 10. Charlie 45, 10-9. Charlie 45, 10-9.
Forty-five's back in.
Civil.
See Charlie 40.
Go ahead.
One to run, please. Last name is Johnson. Common spelling. First name is Carla. Charles Adam Robert Lincoln Adam. Date of birth is 8/6/62. Black female.
Okay, Charlie 45, all I got was Johnson because I couldn't understand what you were saying.
First name is Carla. That's Charles Adam Robert Lincoln Adam. Her date of birth is 8/6/62. Black female.
Hey, Charlie 45.
Go ahead.
So far, she's coming back clear. I'm just waiting on AW. They're real slow about this time because they go down.
Okay. That'll work. Thank you.
Charlie 31. Go for 31. Trouble unknown, Northeast 29th, Martin Luther King. CP advised on 29th there's somebody getting beat up, not answering questions, unit to back.
4-1.
I see. What was it, 20?
Northeast 29, Martin Luther King.
I see. Put me on that.
Tiffle.
45 out 116 in Jordan.
45, you're at what?
16th in Jordan.
Tiffle.
4177.
Two.
Okay, so anyway, that's basically, just showing you that he was calling in, um, at least Carla, and I believe that both of those different times he called when he gave the description was the two different calls, probably. It just doesn't give us a date, unfortunately. So, and then there was a couple of other officers that you could hear chime in. I think one was 35 and one was 31. The female was 31. And then they were just answering random calls as well. So anyway, did you want to add to that, Kay?
No.
Okay.
I do have Brian Bates, his analysis of the allegations and the Carla Johnson. I just wanted to go over a few things that he was thinking about. So I'm just going to read from his podcast, his summary. We know from cell phone records that Johnson did indeed place 4 phone calls in about a 3-minute span right after the stop to her roommate Victor Wilson's number. Each call was very short, and Detective Davis's report only reflects 1. At trial, Johnson said she called the first time at 12:31 a.m. and hung up when she saw Officer Holtzclaw coming back down the street toward her. Just a quick interjection. Phone records actually show she made 2 calls in quick succession at 12:31. Then, after Holtzclaw stopped briefly and went on, she made 2 more telephone calls about 12:33. Both of those in succession. But why? She doesn't even know if Wilson has answered any of the calls. In fact, she testified she didn't even think he would because of the time of nights. So was she truly afraid, and that's why she kept calling even though it would have served no purpose? Or does she always call her roommate when she's headed back home after loitering in a very dangerous high crime area and her phone was just acting up, which she testified it was allegedly broken? Something I would have personally liked to see is a month or so of Johnson's phone records to see if it's common for her to call Wilson late at night. That we already discussed this. There are red flags in this incident, both in Carla's favor and in Officer Daniel Holtzclaw's favor. In Johnson's defense, Holtzclaw's activity log reflected the March 25th traffic stop, the one where she says no sexual assault occurred, but his activity log does not reflect the May 26th stop, the one where she says she was assaulted. Prosecutors alleged that it was intentional on Holtzclaw's part to try and cover up his contact with Johnson. That said, detectives only knew about the May 26th stop because Holtzclaw did call the stop in. So there is an actual record of it, but he didn't write it down. And that's the sheet I was talking about where that was missing from it. In fact, he didn't write down any stops or contacts made with civilians after 10:40, though there was plenty of testimony that Officer Holtzclaw wasn't much of a paper pusher. He didn't have a history of keeping very detailed activity logs or field interview cards, but he also was never confronted about the fact by his supervisors, who were seeing on a daily basis activity logs that must have seemed a bit light and extremely few field interview cards. We saw in emails that were FOIA'd that we saw comments about, I mean, you guys didn't see yet, but I'll try to find that and place it in the timeline somewhere, but talking about how they were questioning that his call volume must be wrong because it was incredibly high, because he was making contact as he had been encouraged to do, the emails reflect, as all the officers had been encouraged to do. He was making as many contacts as he could. When he was clocked in, he was working. He wasn't sitting in a parking lot talking to two other cops. He was doing what his higher ups had instructed him to do. So they knew that they knew what his activity was by the number of people that he was calling in. So I don't think they weren't very worried about his daily activity logs not being complete. Another red flag in Johnson's favor: searching female subjects when the necessity of such a search is debatable. Much was made about male officers searching females at trial, and I'll get into that. He's going to talk about that when he gets to the trial part of the testimony of the podcast. But I can tell you this in Holtzclaw's favor: there is no policy forbidding it, and it almost always comes down to officer discretion. Once again, there are no independent witnesses to these events, even though the encounter was in a very public place on the street in the middle of a neighborhood with lots of late night street activity. Another potential red flag in Holtzclaw's favor, not so much in this case, but back in the original case, the Janie Liggins case, the prosecution and many of Holtzclaw's critics point to that stop and say that about 15 minutes, which I pointed out was actually several minutes less than that stop was far too long for something to not have happened. It's been forwarded that a 15-minute stop is too long of a stop that doesn't result in a ticket or arrest. Well, the first stop with Johnson proves that is not true. That stop that night is about 25 minutes, doesn't involve a vehicle, doesn't involve lack of insurance or driver's license, and doesn't result in an arrest or ticket. Yet it was almost twice as long as Liggins was detained, and Johnson testified that absolutely nothing inappropriate was said or done. Additionally, Carla Johnson allegedly offered to take both a polygraph and stated she could pick her attacker out of a photo lineup. Neither of these things were even offered by Detective Davis to strengthen her credibility. Why do you think that is? Well, you guys know how I feel about that. I think it would have been easy for these women to pick Daniel out of a lineup because he had contact with all of them. I remember almost every time that I've been stopped and where in my mind. I think most people do. You walk by a location, you drive by a location. I got pulled over there when I was 16.
Yeah.
Let's see. Of course, we don't even know for certain Johnson made those statements because Davis didn't even bother to record any of her interviews with her. I personally feel the biggest red flags are the fact we know Johnson lied at least twice in regarding two critical moments. She lied when she tried to bolster her claims and said Holtzclaw reached up under her shirt and bra and touched her bare breast skin to skin. When she was caught in that lie, she backpedaled and she said she was touched on top of her clothing. And he's talking about a preliminary hearing and trial. The second, and in my opinion, even more critical lie is when she and her roommate tried to use the existence of a voicemail to give credibility to her claim of sexual assault. There was clearly testimony that a voicemail had been left on Wilson's phone, and the voicemail detailed and corroborated Johnson's allegations. However, during cross-examination by defense attorney Adams, It also became clear that Wilson and Johnson had conspired together and that neither could keep their story straight. It went from a detailed voicemail was left on Wilson's phone, but only discovered by Wilson the following day and was never discussed in detail with Johnson, but was eventually erased to they did discuss the voicemail that same night. Then there was testimony the voicemail that Wilson had described in detail was actually too garbled to tell what was being said. And lastly, the voicemail was deleted sometime later because he didn't think Johnson was going to report the allegations, but that he deleted the voicemail the same night it was allegedly recorded. Let's see. But should we really be surprised Johnson conspired with her roommate, Wilson? The bigger question is, why did Davis allow that to happen and possibly taint her investigation? Davis waited over a month before making contact with Wilson. How was that professional or even possible? Wilson is Johnson's roommate. He reportedly has a job. Why is there zero mention of Davis asking to talk to Wilson on her first or second visit to Johnson at the home they shared together? Detective Davis is either completely inept or she intentionally was giving Johnson and Wilson time to get their story straight. Why else would you not interview the roommate of an accuser who claims that roommate possesses key evidence? Excuse me. And with that, I go back to the foundation of all criminal proceedings like this. In the absence of direct forensic evidence and the absence of independent eyewitnesses, you must rely on the credibility of those making the allegations and those being accused. Lying on the stand, or at least one's inability to be consistent with critical facts, should cause you to lose your credibility. Unfortunately, we're dealing with an investigation spearheaded by a detective that believes her accusers are credible despite all factual information to the contrary. All right, well, that's that. Let me give you a kind of a Cliff's Notes on Carla Johnson, just to wrap this up. So she first told detectives that an officer had fondled her breasts on top of her clothes. But then at preliminary hearing, she testified she was positive the officer touched his hand to her bare breast, skin to skin. That was her preliminary hearing testimony. At trial, she reverted back to her original allegation that the officer had touched her on top of her shirt, claimed that right after the alleged groping, she told a friend about it on the phone, voicemail, and they both listened to it together before he deleted the message. But at trial, she testified she was positive that at no time did she ever listen to or attempt to listen to the voicemail. So, I mean, ever-changing stories there. Trying to see how many years he got for her.
Well, Kay's looking. Sorry, go ahead.
It was 2 counts. Sorry, it was 2 counts. So 2 counts of sexual battery. I guess for groping her and then for touching her clitoris. So 16 years. Which seems like nothing when you think of 263.
Yeah.
Think of people like Sherry Ellis, who he got 62 years for, and she said he was a short black man.
Right.
Kind of maddening. Well, that's it. That's a wrap, unless you have something else.
I was just going to go through the rap sheet really quick. Okay. Her Carla Johnson's rap sheet, because she's got a few things. So these are her aliases: Lois Hill, Carol Johnson, and Carla R. Thomas. This was a 2006 photo of her. But these are some of her charges, her past offenses. So, yes, she does have, just like the rest of them, she's got a pretty extensive history of. Well, let's just look at them here. Possession of controlled substance, mostly escape from confinement. So, possession of controlled distribution of CDS, possession with intent, unlawful possession of paraphernalia, possession of controlled bail jumping, possession of controlled substance, and bail jumping, and that's just some of her little charges in her little rap sheet. So yeah, just she's trying to sorry, we're just trying to show that this is what Timothy Musney had done. This is what he was looking for, was for women with those kinds of charges, and a lot of the other women have prostitution included with their charges as well. So really, like we were saying, if you want to get more detailed about Carla Johnson's allegations, definitely go back and listen to episode 14 of the podcast, because Brian Bates is great with he gives a lot of detail and stuff that we're not really always privy to, obviously. So there's a link to the episode 14 if you'd like to go and check that out on your own time. It's not very long either, because her case was such a quite a bit. I don't know how to say this. It's going to sound really bad to say it like this, but a little less exciting, more boring, I guess. I don't know.
Well, they're piling on at this point, and so I think, I don't know what would, if they could have found the match to the DNA, then there would have been half as many accusers, but they've been told, find more accusers, because nothing was matching. So go find more accusers. Ferguson's going on. They're probably getting serious heat about that. Although there's no indication anywhere about that.
Right. Well, they're not, because they're not going to admit it.
They're probably talking about that face to face.
Yeah. I'm going to put a quote here in the chat. It's going to take a couple of things here that Kim Davis said. She says, we'll take our time and we'll verify everything the girls say, or we'll verify everything he said. And that's the way the chips are going to fall. And everything the girls said verified, and nothing he said did. And that's just such a crock of shit, because nothing, it's all he said, his word against theirs, or their word against his, or however you say it. So it's but for Kim Davis to say she's so cavalier and blasé.
She says we're going to do these things. We'll take our time and we'll verify everything. Okay, she's saying they're going to take their time and verify it, and like the chips will fall where they may. But this is in the same breath. She says, and everything that the girls said verified, and nothing he said did. Wait a minute. I thought you were going to take your time and look and see, but you're so dumb that you're going to make this statement. Doesn't even make sense.
Well, and not only that, but they never even spoke to Daniel again after the interrogation.
They
So
tried to.
well, they tried, but for her to be able to, for her to say that, and everything that he said did, and nothing that he said did, well, he didn't say anything. The only person he talked about was Janie Liggins and Terry Morris. So for her to say that, is pretty, I don't know. To me, that was a slip. Like, oops, how can you say that when you never spoke to him after the interrogation? But whatever, that's their thing. So, so anyway, we're going to start with Tabitha Barnes next week. I guarantee you she's going to be a lot more. Again, this sounds really weird to say, but exciting, interesting. Maybe that's a better word. Hers is going to be a lot more interesting. It's very twisted and convoluted, and Rocky Gregory writes these reports, and he is just an idiot. But we're just going to let you guys, because there's no recording, we kind of have to just go through the police report with you to show you, what he claims she says, which is what it really comes down to. Whatever.
I think there is one
There
recording.
is one recording. I think it's the second interview. It's not the first one.
That's
There's like
right.
2 or 3 different interviews, honestly, because you'll see when we get there. It's hard to keep tabs on this one because it's really, really crazy. And I would dare say that Tabitha Barnes is probably the most, the most aggressive of all of the accusers. She's very snarky and snippy and snotty and bitchy, and just she really gives her story some attitude for sure. So hers is definitely going to be far more interesting than Carla Johnson was. I guarantee it. And like I said, I think we're probably going to do Tabitha Barnes in 2 different episodes because it's got so much twists and turns that we want to point out to you, the lies and inconsistencies of. So that's all that we're going to have for tonight. Jack, I know it's other than some reading, we really haven't given you or Susan much a chance to chime in. Do you have any comments or questions about what we talked about?
I'm sure Susan's got a lot of comments. I do too. I mean, my God, it's just so ridiculous to me that, basically, Kim Davis says they've got a goal. That's what I get from it, and that is to convict Daniel. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get that guy. And basically believing, I do believe that many of these women, I'm not going to say every one of them, I do believe that many of them were probably attacked by an Oklahoma City police officer, but it wasn't Daniel.
Right.
And I think they covered it up. I think they know who that person was that did it, and I think they covered it up and pinned it on Daniel. And you just could hear from the radio calls, it wasn't like he was just driving around looking for people. He was communicating with dispatch. I mean, he didn't in every case, but I dare say in a large city like that, most officers don't. I'd say it's a rarity that every single incident is called in on the radio. I'd say it's very rare, if at all.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Iced coffee, are you talking about what the dispatcher said that she couldn't give, I think, AWs?
Oh, I thought
that was down. I'm not sure what she's asking.
I was thinking Iced Coffee was maybe misunderstanding what we're saying, AVL.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not
GPS.
It's not ABO, it's AV as in Victor, L as in
Lee.
And AVL is automated vehicle locator, like it's basically police talk for GPS, basically.
Yeah, it's a GPS tracker that's attached to every vehicle.
Yep. And so the whole thing is that throughout this whole case, the accusers the accuser's location of their alleged assault and time of their alleged assault and all that stuff was basically tracked by his AVL, his GPS system. His GPS system is saying, well, yes, I stopped this person at this time, at this place for this amount of time. Well, they're using that. The detectives use that to, I guess, to, that C word, corroborate the, where these women claim they were assaulted. And, so, every police officer then is at risk of being accused of assault or accused of anything based off of their GPS. And that's what they base their case on. So I think that's what you were asking anyway.
But if it wasn't what you were asking, the other thing was what the dispatcher said, that that was down or slow right now. And Daniel said, no problem. She was referring to city warrants, which they made a big deal of him using city warrants against people. That shows that he doesn't care about city warrants. He wasn't known for, and you can look at his history, he wasn't known for taking people to jail for unpaid city warrants. Maybe that was the other thing.
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, the city warrants for any officer to take, their subjects in on city warrants was very time consuming to do for a city warrant, when all they really had to do was basically go pay a fine or go pay a ticket. So, the officers aren't going to take them downtown and book them for those, because it's, think about how long it takes to book somebody. Well, at least an hour, 2 hours, that's time off the street where they, need to be really spending their time. So, yeah, but both good questions either way. So, if it was about the CW and I didn't know what that was, CW, but now that makes sense. I said that was inaudible in my subtitle. So thank you for clarifying that, Kay. Okay, Susan, any comments or questions that you have about tonight's episode?
Yeah, I really like Kay's point when she said, if Daniel were actually doing this stuff, why would he do it on calls on stops that he called in?
That's right.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
0 sense.
He could have pulled anybody over at any time, not called it in, and assaulted women if that was his, deal.
Yeah.
But
or done it when he wasn't on duty.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And or he could have done the even shadier thing and turned off and there's been a lot of myths or lies or misconceptions or misunderstandings out there in the guilters community, I guess you would call it, who say, well, he was turning off his computer or his GPS when he was stopping these women. He did not ever turn off his computer ever during a stop, ever. Never did he ever do that.
Except for the after-hours traffic stop.
Clocked out, right. And he was on his way home.
But people think that all of these allegations, including Janie Liggins, happened on the clock. And the reason for that is because there are so many Inquirer-like shows that have so much misinformation.
Yeah.
That it's really hard. I mean, people even get misinformation from listening to the interrogation. Like, people think there really were pubic hairs in the back seat of his car because Davis told him that in the interview. Right. So people think that's gospel because she said so.
Or that the video. Right. Or that grainy video showed everything that Janie Liggins accused him of. So it's it's really hard to combat all of the all of the false myths or lies or misunderstandings, whatever you want to call them.
Do you know how big their list was to start with of all the drug addicted prostitutes that they?
I don't, but I know they had to narrow it down because it was too much.
You know, the fact that they only came up with as many as they did. A lot of them said no, nothing happened. You know, if he was doing that, you'd think he'd come up with a lot more than what they did. That was just the number of women willing to lie, in my estimation.
Well,
Yeah,
if they
who
would
was
have been smart enough to go backwards, they wouldn't have had 13 either, because DNA on the pants that he only wore for 2 days could only be
Right.
from a handful of people that he pulled over the last 2 days.
Yeah.
But they had to go back and snag
going back
Terry
months.
Morris. Right.
Yeah.
They had to go snag Terry Morris and make her a part of the case because Janie Liggins had no evidence to charge Daniel with, even though oddly enough, he was convicted
Yeah.
on her with no evidence.
And she did a SANE exam, for God's sake, right after, you know.
Yes. Yeah. She did the SANE exam, which came back with zero evidence, and we saw that in Dr. Silkman's presentation. There is zero evidence of any other DNA except for her own through her SANE exam.
No prints on the car where she said, you know, she touched, he touched. Yeah. Nothing
That's
she
because
said
so many
was
people
backed
touch
up.
the cars. I can't do it as good as
Cars.
That's horde. It's horde.
But you know, his car was filthy. Oh God,
pigsty inside. Yeah, it's and
like
you know
that
the
has
thing about
anything to do with fingerprints
Right.
on the exterior of the car.
Exactly.
Who was the witness that described her attacker as a black guy darker than her?
Sherry Ellis.
And what did Kim Davis do? She just ignored it. Just completely ignored that.
She says, she repeats
lies.
it. She says, blackmail.
Yeah,
like
like
no
she's like-
problem.
Right. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. Describe somebody that's completely different race, but it's okay. We're going to move forward.
A
A
head
little bit
shorter
later,
than
she's
me.
like, I know what police officer did
I know-
this to you.
Yeah, exactly. I know what officer did this to you. I believe you.
Sure. I
And
believe you. I believe you.
remember that, well, if you don't remember, or if you haven't heard or watched our Sherry Ellis episode yet, Sherry Ellis could not identify Daniel in court during the trial. And in her deposition, and I've played that multiple times, in her deposition, she claims that she never saw, she was shown a picture of Daniel in the deposition, and she said she had never seen him before going to trial in the courtroom.
Right.
And how many years did she get? Okay, 62?
62. She said the first time I saw who they said did this to me was at trial.
At trial.
That's crazy.
What
Who they
said did this to me?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And she dropped out of the civil suit too because
She looks like a liar.
She had a conscience.
maybe that's what I'm wondering. I think she realized, hey, you know, she didn't know what to do, I guess, after because maybe she had been raped previously. And maybe she was happy to get this person off the street. But they gave her a location.
Mm-hmm.
And she went with that location because she could remember the details of it because it was a real traffic stop. It was a real series of events.
Right.
All she had to do was insert either her other memories from a different
Right.
incident into this or lie, whichever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's the only one. She and Daniel are the only two people who know
Right.
for real what's up.
That's true. Yep. And, you know, we know who we believe, of course. But, you know, it's,
That's why I think it would be awesome if these women got together and sued
Yep. Kim Davis,
his
Rocky,
exes.
and
Yeah.
yep, and the Oklahoma City Police Department. Absolutely.
yeah,
And you and the prosecutor.
especially the prosecutor.
That would make that would
Yeah.
bring a big smile to my face.
Yep. And the judge. The whole city, the whole county.
Speaking of the judge, anything going on there?
It's done.
Yeah, it's he pretty much skated.
What? Nothing happened?
Nothing. They said even though I can't remember what the judge that issued the ruling said, that basically even though it seems like, Rhonda, maybe we could find that article real quick, and it's the last paragraph. So it went to the grand jury. Well, first of all, when it happened, the governor asked the OSBI to investigate because Prater was conflicted. And so that was going on. And then the next thing you know, you've heard nothing from the OSBI. The next thing you hear is the grand jury has taken it. So at that point, I wasn't sure. I mean, does that mean the OSBI's not doing it anymore? Or I didn't know. And
Yeah.
it was never explained. So the grand jury releases their, even though he abused his power and shouldn't practice law and blah, 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 those kind of words, there's nothing to charge him.
Is he practicing law?
Yeah, he's practicing law.
Yep. He gets to. I'll show you this article.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. So this is going to be glitchy
And
because
weren't there some cases that people wanted to bring back up? I mean, have any of those?
One of the guys, his attorney, Robert Gifford, got him off without even a retrial.
Wow.
I mean, and he was guilty of the things he was charged with, but
Wow.
I don't know if the whole thing was that the sentence was out of whack or whatever, but the new DA, Vicky Behenna, met with his attorney and listened to what his attorney had to say, and however he pled his case to her, she felt that he was correct and she agreed. And I don't know, I'm sure by now, because that's been a couple months ago, that he's out of prison.
What's the date on this article, Rhonda?
this was updated August 1st, 2022 at 11:40 in the morning.
Whoa,
when this is
geez.
up.
When was it that he was found out?
The year before, right?
Yep, it was the spring before.
Was it that long ago?
I know,
Yeah,
huh?
it was. Yes, it was in
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, it
No.
says so. Yeah,
No.
no, would face no charges. There was one line down there, one little thing down here. Let's see. Well, Jason Hicks was the DA that was brought in to to be the DA in the case if it were going to go to trial. And he says, in my 12 years as an elected DA, I have not been as disappointed and disgusted with the conduct of an elected official as I am in this matter, speaking about Henderson. Contact between a judge and an attorney should remain professional at all times. Our society is based upon the notion that all people have equal access to justice and will receive a fair trial. When relationships between judges and lawyers become too personal, that notion of fairness suffers greatly. Due process demands that all parties conduct themselves with the thought that someone charged with a crime receive a fair trial and that the process is not weighted to one side or the other. While I recognize that relationships develop, those relationships should always remain professional and avoid any appearance of impropriety. As professionals within the court system, we should always strive blah, 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 blah. And he says, in this investigation, it's crystal clear that Henderson preyed on young women whom he believed would respond in his favor. His actions generally started with emails, text messages, and an acknowledgement that he was willing and could help them with their careers. Based upon the investigation conducted into Henderson, it is obvious that he violated the trust of the public and our profession, and as such should never be allowed to practice law again. And that was signed District Attorney Jason Hicks, but he is practicing
Can't tell me
law.
that they didn't have their thumb on the scale on Henderson's side and let him off. Can you imagine?
Well,
Let's
that's
just
why it
imagine.
went. Yeah, Jack,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. Because that's why it went to the grand jury, because all that stuff is sealed and not,
Yeah.
it's all behind closed doors. You don't get to know any of it.
Such bullshit.
Well, everything in this whole case is bullshit.
Yeah.
True.
That's as much bullshit as those secret hearings were. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That too.
Uh,
Again, thumb on the scale on the side of the state.
frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and like I mentioned last week, we're not talking just about Henderson. We're talking about Galen Gigger, the prosecutor,
Yep. Same.
Yep.
whose son was accused of sexually assaulting three young
girls, three minors.
teenage
Yep.
girls. Yeah.
That's right.
And that's still, although nothing has moved on that, that is
That's still open, isn't it?
Yes, that is still something that can be filed against Gigger's kid.
Well, they filed it, and then when he was running for DA, and then took it back. I don't know what that's called.
They dismissed
Withdrawal it.
Yeah, withdrawal or dismissal.
With or without prejudice, but whichever one of those means that you can file it again.
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice, so they can file it.
I found out that the reason that they did that was there was a clock on it. So I guess you have so much time to file something.
That's true in most states, I think.
But when you do what they did and then dismiss it, did you say without prejudice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it gives you more time, I guess. So in the sense that it can be filed again, I don't know if there's a clock on that. Do you know, Jack?
No, I don't think there's necessarily a clock on that as to. I guess that would fall under the statute of limitations if there is such a thing for these particular charges.
For rape, that's 7 years, I think.
Okay, well there you go. That would be the clock.
For underage, I don't know.
Oh,
that mother really wanted charges brought.
Yeah, and I mean, she went and talked to people in the DA's office and the AG's office, but we have new officials now, so hopefully she's not too beaten down with how she's been treated and all the dirtiness that she's had to live through with this case.
Yeah.
From Prater batting it over to Cleveland County, her interview being lost. They were trying to
Her
get
forensic interview was lost. That was such a crock of shit.
I mean, everything
Huge.
that everything that they had control over, they disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really disgusting because one of those young girls, now his son was allegedly, I think, 15 or 16 at the time of these alleged assaults. One of those young girls, though, was only 12 years old.
Yeah.
And so Duggars keep coming to my mind. Not that I've followed that situation very much, but I do know like the basics of it. And the Duggars keep coming to my mind. He's a 15 or a 16-year-old kid, but he still knows what he's doing when it comes to a 12-year-old. He's groomed her. She was there's a relation in there. There's a girlfriend with a friend and a cousin, and all three of the girls, they don't all three know each other, but a couple of them are related or they're friends or something. I can't remember all the details now, but yeah, and it was all, like Kay said, it was all disappeared. And they were trying to keep what's his name? Galen Gigger he went batshit crazy during the debate when Calvin, what was his name? The one who beat him anyway. He went batshit crazy when he called Gigger out on that. He lost his mind. You could see his face turn red in that debate, and he was pissed when that got brought up. But you know what? It was legit. It was valid. Even the appearance at that point, anyway, and that was all dismissed. No, that got dismissed because you had some people covering your shit for you. That's why. Those girls did not dismiss. What's that?
That was Kevin Calvi.
Kevin Calvi, yeah. Yeah, that was, I remember watching that and I was like going, oh shit, it is about to go down, and it went down. Galen Gigger was pissed. So it was interesting for sure. So yeah, there's just a bunch of dirt all over the county in their court systems, and from judges to attorneys to whatever, there are dirty hands all over in that court system, and it's really disgusting. And it goes back to us reading Death and Justice when we were reading, covering that a while back. It's not something new. It's
oh hell no.
Yeah, it goes way back. So it's a cancer on the system there, it seems like to me.
Justice.
Yeah.
System.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So I lost my StreamYard tab. There we are. All right. Well, I think then until next week, we will wrap this one up. And everybody in chat, thank you so much for being here and hanging out and all the great questions and comments. Again, don't forget to say happy birthday to Cherie. She's getting old now. I can say that because I'm the same age. We're not getting old. We're just getting started. So anyway, thank you again to Kay for all that Kay did all of this one this week, because I have been AWOL. So she did all of it this week on her own, and all I did was come in and push buttons and share screens. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kay.
Yeah.
Awesome, Kay.
And for Jack and Susan for helping to read. I really do appreciate your help as well.
Thank Brian Bates.
Yeah.
He makes it a lot easier just by having it organized in one space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did want to share, I forgot to share this with everybody last week, because we were going to do this every time there was a lie, and we keep forgetting. But I forgot to show it to everybody, but I'll try to remember. it's hard because there's so many lies, but this is what, don't be shocked or frightened if you hear this in the future. That was Kay's idea. It's so hard because there's so many lies. I'd be over here pushing that buzzer button
I was
constantly.
gonna say it would just be on all the time.
Yeah,
Just be the buzzer show instead of the gong show.
exactly. That's exactly right. So, all right. Well, again, happy birthday, Cherie. I hope that you had a wonderful dinner with your family and that you had a wonderful birthday. And it's still not over. You still got a few hours. So hopefully you had that margarita
Or two.
or two. Well, she can't handle two.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, she's only good for a few sips, if I'm being honest.
It's like that, huh?
Yep.
Oh
But it's
dear.
still a lot of fun. Anyway, so we're getting better. Oh, yes, we're definitely getting better. Of course, of course. All right. Well, until I think that's about all we've got for now. So until next time, peace out.